Hey guys, I'm Daisho here bringing you another in-depth guide. This time we're going to go through Unquenchable Fire, which I believe is one of the top 2 decks in this game. It all is going to come down to Realm of Illusion and Unquenchable Fire. Those are the decks that I use. That's how I win most of my games, just because I'm using the best decks. It's not like I'm that much better than so many people. It's just you try to use the best decks, try to know what you can about the counters for each deck, and then you'll be fine. So this deck is pretty much a direct counter to Blood Hunger and the Realm of Illusion, and those are the 2 decks that this deck is gonna be able to beat that most other decks can't beat, because those are 2 of the top 4 or 5 decks in the game, and this deck can actually handle them really, really well. And this deck is also, it just does well against every deck except for Ancient Depths. If you're playing against Ancient Depths, you're really not in good shape. But other than that, it can handle most decks. It's not great against the Dragons either, and it's not great against Apex Predators, but it can still handle those decks and sometimes win. Sometimes not win, sometimes win, but against the other 2 that I mentioned, Realm of Illusion and Blood Hunger, this deck does extremely well. And again, it's countered by Ancient Depths. Okay, so now I'm going to actually go through all the cards. First, I'm going to say the way to win with this deck is to kill all of their creatures, get a couple of your creatures out, like Flamekin Brawler. You really only need 1 or 2 of those guys, and then just win that way. Then your secondary strategy is to keep killing their creatures as they come out, and then wait for a big creature like Inferno Titan, who I'm going to go through afterwards, to come out and win that way. And then your tertiary strategy would be to just use your cards like Blaze to just deal damage straight to their face and win that way. Okay, now I'm not gonna go through each card and say this is type A strategy, this is type B, but I hope that you guys can put that together for yourselves. And now I'm going to start going through the cards. Banefire and Blaze pretty much do the same thing. They may not be the best cards because they deal 1 less damage than the mana cost, and as you'll see, most cards do either the amount that their mana cost is or more, but these do 1 less. The only thing is that these cards, in the late game, they can do a ton of damage, because a lot of the times this game will wow, what am I trying to say? It'll extend to a lot of mana, and you'll be able to deal a lot of damage with Blaze and Banefire, so then they'll be really useful. Plus they could deal damage straight to a creature, and they can deal as much damage as you need, so you don't have to waste mana. But anyway, Flamekin Brawler is a really, really good card. It's 1 cost, 0/2, and it gets +1/+0 until end of turn, so it's like a Fiery Hellhound, who I'm going to go over later, but he's 2 cheaper, so that's really nice. It's a really, really low cost creature, which is great because a lot of the times you're going to want to save your mana open for killing their creatures. Flame Slash is just basically what your deck is based around. It's a 1 cost card, and it deals 4 damage to a target creature or player. I kind of wish there were 4 of these in the deck, but it's still a really good card. Goblin Arsonist is good. It deals 1 damage to target creature or player when it dies, so that means that if they have a creature with 2 toughness, then you can block it, deal 1 damage that way, then when it goes to the graveyard, deal another damage to it. So you can actually kill creatures with 2 toughness, plus it's basically like a kill card. Or if they have a creature with 1 toughness and 1 that they just summoned or something like that, and they attack, you block with this guy, and then you can kill 2 creatures with this 1 card. So it's actually a pretty useful card. Incinerate is one of your best burn spells because it's only 2 costs, it deals 3 damage, plus it's an instant, plus creature dealt damage this way, it can't be regenerated. There's not that much regeneration, but it can kill Cudgel Troll, I guess, is one example. I think that may be one of the only cards that it can actually kill, but whatever. It's good for killing creatures, and it can also deal damage straight to the player, so that's also nice. Kiln Fiend is going to be one of your main ways that you're going to win. You play this card, and then let's say they have 1 creature on the board because you've been killing all their creatures every turn. But then last turn you couldn't because you played Kiln Fiend. So then the next turn you play Volcanic Hammer or Incinerate or whatever. I didn't get up to Volcanic Hammer, but I'll show you that in a second. You play Incinerate, and then you kill their creature, and then this guy gets +3, so then you're swinging it for 4. And he's only a 2 cost creature. To be swinging it for 4 every turn is really, really nice. Plus they're not going to be able to block it because you killed their creature. That's the nature of this deck, is basically to kill their creatures, swing them with yours, deal a lot of damage that way. Punishing Fire is such an amazing card in this format. Basically, it's just an instant that deals 2 damage, and it's 2 cost, so you might say that's not so great, but then there's cards like Dragon Claw, that whenever a player casts a spell, you gain 1 life. So let's say your opponent has one of those out, every single time he plays a spell, as long as you have a mana open, you can just get this card back. It's happened to me multiple times already, where my opponent plays this Dragon's Claw, then I kill one of his creatures with Punishing Fire, and I always leave a mana open because every single time he plays a creature, I can get this card back and then kill his creature again, which just gives me an insane card advantage over him, which is what I'm going to talk about next with Pyroclasm. Pyroclasm deals 2 damage to each creature, so it deals 2 damage to every single creature on the board, including yours. But what you're going to want to do with this guy is just wait a few turns at the beginning of the game. Say wait 3 or 4 turns, and they're going to play a lot of creatures, usually with 2 or less toughness, and then you can just come in, do this. Even if you take a few damage, it still could be worth it. You do this because then you have an advantage over them, because you don't have to use your 1 card to kill 1 card. This card kills 3 cards or 4 cards or something like that. So it really gives you an advantage, a card advantage, which is what you want to get. So if the other person only has 3 cards in your hand and you have 6, and 3 of them are Volcanic Hammers, then even if he has 3 creatures, then no matter what he can do, no matter what he does, you can kill his creatures as they come out, and then it helps you win the game so much. Volcanic Hammer, it just deals 3 damage to target creature or player. It's pretty decent. It's a sorcery, so note that. It's worse than Incinerate because it's a sorcery. But it's still a pretty decent card, so don't sleep on the Volcanic Hammer. Chandra's Phoenix is helpful. It's one of those cards like Flamekin Brawler and Kiln Fiend. It helps you in the game. It's a Flying Haste 2/2. It's 3 cost, and you can get it back from your graveyard to your hand whenever you deal damage to them with one of your, like, let's say Volcanic Hammer or something. Where'd it go? Volcanic Hammer or something. You can deal damage straight to their face and then get your Chandra Phoenix back. I have these Fiery Hellhounds in here. At first, I took them out. Or a couple of them out, but then I realized that these are really good cards because you can actually use these cards as a kill card. So, like, let's say the game has been going on for a while, you're at like 5 mana or whatever, and you've been killing their creatures every turn. By now, they're starting to get to their higher cost creatures. Maybe you can't kill them straight up with kill cards, but then you play Fiery Hellhound, and then you have 5 mana open, so you swing. They're really not going to want to take 7 damage, so they're going to have to block. They're going to be forced to block, and then you can pump them up, and they're going to kill your Fiery Hellhound, but you're going to kill them. So basically, he can act as a kill card. Other than that, if they don't have any creatures out, he can deal insane amounts of damage really, really quickly, which is great. And then additionally to that, I wanted to mention that you should, if you're planning on attacking with Fiery Hellhound, even if you're not planning on pumping, swing before the attack phase. They will be much more worried about him and try to contain him in any way possible. If they have an instant, if they can block and you want them to block, and swing before, even if you're planning on using all your mana and you're like, there's no way I'm pumping him, still swing before you play any creatures or stuff, unless obviously the creatures help somehow. But or like if you want to get rid of the cards in your way and you just want to get the damage through, then do it that way. But otherwise, you want to save the mana open as a threat. Another thing that I would recommend is if you have, say, a Flame Blast Dragon and you have 6 mana open and they don't have any cards on the field, then I would still recommend just swinging with the Fiery Hellhound. You'll get 8 damage through, and even though next turn you maybe could have played Flame Blast, it's worth it to just swing with this guy until he dies, because let's say they have a Go for the Throat or something like that, so then they kill your Fiery Hellhound, but if you had played Flame Blast Dragon, they would have killed that instead, and you really just want to save these guys. And like, if you don't have to play something like Flame Blast Dragon or Inferno Titan to win, don't do it, because you never know when you might need it later on in the game. Prodigal Pyromancer. This card is really good. It'll help you kill stronger creatures that you maybe couldn't have killed with the kill cards in your hand. Say there's a creature with 4 toughness and you got a Volcanic Hammer and that's it in your hand. This guy on the field will basically make it to 4. And then it can just help you win the game because it can deal 1 damage every turn. It's not unblockable, but you can just deal 1 damage by tapping it to anything. So it can even deal damage to the creature or player. Then there's something I want to talk about for both these guys, Flametongue Kavu and Chandra's Outrage. They both deal 4 damage to target creature, but Chandra's Outrage is an instant and it deals 2 damage to that creature's controller. It's pretty good. This guy, he just deals 4 damage to target creature, but if they don't have any creatures on the board and you play Flametongue Kavu, then you have to deal damage to one of your creatures. So you should definitely keep that in mind when you're playing this card. Otherwise, it's really, really good because it kills one of their creatures and gives you a creature. So it's a creature and a kill card. Plus, it has four power, so it's really, really strong. If you didn't know, I don't know if I've ever mentioned this, but the number on the left in the bottom right corner of the card is the power, and the right is the toughness, and it's basically like attack and health. That's the way I think of it, but it's called power and toughness for whatever reason. Chandra's Outrage also does that, but the reason I group them is because if you're playing against something like... actually, I don't know why I grouped them. I should not have grouped them. But anyway, Chandra's Outrage, if you're playing against something like the Illusion deck, and they have a card that, like, for instance, the Bear, Phantasmal Bear, if they have that card out and you do this, then the 2 damage will not be dealt to the creature's controller. Basically what happens is once you target that creature, they have to sacrifice it, and then this card doesn't end up doing anything. It doesn't end up using the thing that's on the card. The only problem is once it's on the board, it has to resolve. So instead of resolving, it just fizzles and it goes to your graveyard. So it doesn't deal the 2 damage to the creature's controller, which is rather unfortunate for you. But anyway, Lava Axe is, I mean, I've skipped over Fire Servant. If a red instant or sorcery spell you control would deal damage, it deals double damage instead, so that's amazing. And I do believe that you'll be able to get to the 5 land drop because you can basically spend the rest of the time killing their creatures. Lava Axe, it deals 5 damage to target creature or player. That's not bad. It's not amazing. It's 5 costs for 5 damage, and it's only to a player, so that's a little unfortunate. Flame Blast is really, really good. He's a 5/5 flyer for 6 costs. Plus, he can kill creatures or players. So he gives you so many options. And then Inferno Titan is literally just an amazing card. You can deal 3 damage divided among 1, 2, or 3 creatures, target creatures or players. So you can deal 1 damage to a player, 1 damage to a creature, 1 damage to a creature, 3 damage to a player, 3 damage to a creature, whatever you want, every time he enters a battlefield or attacks. So that means that if they have 1 creature on the board and he attacks, and you can kill that creature without wasting any of your mana or any of your kill cards, and then pump this guy up at least 6 times, so then you're swinging it for 12. So once you get this guy on the board, it's pretty much game over unless they have some sort of kill card in their hand, and they can, or arrest or something like that, where they can contain you or mind control. You don't want to be mind controlled when you have an Inferno Titan. But anyway, Cinderwall is pretty bad. I mean, it's not bad. It's a decent card. I just don't believe it has a place in this deck. You can use your kill cards better to contain their cards than Cinderwall, but it's definitely not a bad card. It's 1 cost for a 3/3. Even though it has Defender and it dies whenever it does anything, it's still a pretty decent card. Dragon's Claw I really don't like. It just wastes a card, and as I said before, this deck is all about card advantage. You want to have more cards than your opponent does. Goblin's Warpaint, this deck isn't about building strong creatures or attacking with haste, so I'm not saying it's a bad card, but it really doesn't have a place in this deck. Sizzle, you might think is really useful, but it can only deal damage to an enemy. If you're playing Two-Headed Dragon, throw this card in because it'll probably deal damage. Actually, will it deal damage to each of them? I'm really not sure because I never played Two-Headed Dragon on this game. I think it would, but I don't know. But anyway, it's decent, but I had taken out Fiery Hellhound for it, and I realized that Fiery Hellhound could be really used as a kill card, so I think it's a little bit better. Wheel of Fortune is definitely not a bad card, and I think I should maybe put it in. I'm not really sure what I would take out, because everything in this deck is pretty much used as a kill card, which is what I like. But maybe the only card I could think of taking out would be 1 Fiery Hellhound, since I already have 4 of them. But I'm not really sure how good it is, because think about it. Even though you may be getting a card advantage because, like, let's say you had killed their creatures previously and used up all your cards, you're still giving them 7 cards back. So it's not always the most useful thing. This card is completely useless in this deck. You almost never need to attack, and like even when you do, you're not like attacking with so many creatures. So I'm not saying it's the worst card for this deck, but again, I just don't think it has such a great place in this deck, and I don't think you should keep it in. If it was in the other red deck, I would definitely suggest keeping it in. These guys are just vanilla 5/4s. Like, they don't do anything. Every single card in this deck does something, except for these guys, so I don't like it. It's just a 5/4. It's not helpful at all. I mean, I guess late game, if you get him in play, then you can deal a lot of damage with him, but I'd rather use something like Fiery Hellhound that can deal more damage than this card. So I really don't like these 2 cards. Ember Shot is a god-awful card. It does the same thing as Incinerate, except it's 5 more cost to draw 1 card. So just think about it that way, and then that's why it's not in the deck, because it's so expensive. Flame, I don't know why I keep saying Wave, but Flame Wave is not such a great card, because, I mean, it's a really good card, but not in this deck, because if you use it in this deck, then you're basically saying, alright, when I have 7, by the time I get 7 mana out, I'm expecting them to have a lot of creatures out. But if they have so many creatures out by the time that you have 7 mana, then the game's going to be over, you're going to have lost by then, because basically this deck runs on the premise saying, alright, I'm going to kill their creatures as they come out, and that's how I'm going to win this game, because you don't have any defense, so there's no way that you're going to survive so long with if they have a lot of creatures out. Anyway, that's pretty much it for this breakdown. I really hope you guys enjoyed. If you want to help me out more than just the standard like or favorite, then read the description, but I'm not going to waste your guys' time if you don't want to. Thank you so much for watching this video, and have a nice day. Bye.